So, yet another story in Trumpland, um, which just really seems to be a trajectory with this president, and that is John Bolton's book. Um, there's absolutely nothing new about this in terms of a former Trump cabinet member leaving this White House and really revealing quite credible, quite shocking allegations against the president. Um, there's a trajectory. This has happened now with. I don't think there's ever been a first-term president, at least not in the modern era, that's had so many resignations or dismissals or sackings. As Trump says, Bolton says he resigned. Um, in the first term, I don't think, certainly in modern times, there is such an administration that has had so much internal tensions, so many internal intentions, I should say. So this book that Bolton has released claims, among other things, he sought to curry favour with world leaders, telling Xi Jinping at one point, I'm reading from the London Times here, that he was right to hold Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. If there's any proof in that, that is an absolute disgrace. Um, I'm pleading with him to help him win re-election in November by buying more from US farmers. On one occasion, he asked if Finland was part of Russia. He also did not realise that the UK was a nuclear power, it suggests. Mr. Bolton told ABC News he thought Mr. Putin did not consider Mr. Trump a serious adversary, adding, I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle. I think Putin is smart, tough. I think he sees he's not faced with a serious adversary here. I don't think he's worried about Donald Trump. A very difficult position for America um, to be in. Now let's just look at some of the things we do know here. We do know that Bolton is no typical sort of left-wing Trump hater. He's one of the most hawkish US politicians of recent years. He was a hawk in the Bush 43 administration. He's widely known as a hawk and a neocon, to use the term, which is a controversial term, but I'll use it in this context. Um, so John Bolton can't be, pinned down as some typical left-wing critic of Trump. This is a bit that I find interesting. Um, Trump has accused Mr. Bolton in turn of wrecking his overtures to Kim Jong Un, but he said that nobody in the White House liked this guy. They all hated him. I thought he was a wacko. Well, if Trump thought he was a wacko, then why did he bring him into his White House in the first place? As far as I'm concerned, that's Trump scoring an own goal. He's lashing back at this by calling John Bolton a wacko. Well, that shows bad judgment on the part of Donald Trump. In the end of the day, it's the president who has to say who comes into his cabinet. So if Trump really believes he is such a charlatan and such a wacko, then why did he bring him in? Of course, the Trump apologists will overlook that little detail. Um, it might be the narrative that Trump's going to put out on this is that Bolton's just bitter that Trump claims he was sacked. Bolton's just bitter and he wants revenge. Well, in that case, that is true of pretty much everyone from the Trump administration that has subsequently turned against the Trump administration. Now, I'm not totally sympathetic to them. These are people who absolutely endorsed this president, went into his White House knowing full well what his character is, and then they're, turning against him. It may be that there is some personal vindictiveness going on there, but at some point you have to think there is a trajectory with this. And I don't know how Trump supporters could be so dogged in their defense of him. I mean, he's had some defenders, of course. Mr. Trump was defended by members of his cabinet. Robert Lighthizer, the U.S. Trade Representative, said absolutely untrue, never happened. I was there. I don't believe it's true. I don't believe it ever happened. Bill Barr, the Attorney General, denied that Mr. Bolton had complained to him about certain misdeeds. Kerry Kupek, a Justice Department spokeswoman, said there's no discussion of personal favours or undue influence on investigations. Well, will these people be singing the same tune if they get dismissed from this White House? I mean, this is the most unstable cabinet I can think of in my lifetime. Um, and the evidence is there. The evidence is plain to see. The number of people that Trump has really, praised and spoken about being great people, and then as soon as he dismisses them from the White House or fires them or they resign or whatever the situation is, then it's a war of words. I do not believe that all of these people are just sour grapes and just lashing out at the president. It's true that in every presidency you get some internal dissent, you get some cabinet rumblings. It happened in the Bush era, it happened in the Clinton era, it happened even in the Obama era, but none are comparable to Trump. The only comparison I think is really Richard Nixon. Um, I think that this can't be dismissed. I mean, John Bolton is many things. I don't particularly like the man, but I think it's too simplistic to say, oh, well, he's sour grapes, so he's just making all these things up. If he's just making them up, he could find himself in serious trouble for leaking classified information. In fact, what's actually happened, apparently Trump's considering prosecuting him for this. Well, apparently Bolton had his draft checked by the Department of, excuse me, just bear with me a second. Yeah, in fact, Mr. Bolton submitted the manuscript to the National Security Council, which he said was studied 4 times, and certain passages were removed for national security reasons. This is the National Security Council. Now, if Bolton was leaking information that was sensitive to national security, then I don't think they would have approved of this manuscript, would they? It just seems implausible. Why? Just to make Trump look bad? I think that is far-fetched. Um, Trump was coming out with his usual bombastic rhetoric at the Tulsa rally today. He made some off-color joke about cutting testing. No doubt his apologists will say, "Oh, it was taken out of context. It was just a joke." And never have I seen a president with so many excuses made for him. Um, I'm just going to say, I think Trump is a disgrace. I think he's a disgrace. And I think if he actually loses this election, we don't know, it would be foolhardy to make predictions. But if he loses, I don't think he'll go down quietly. I think it'll end up in the Supreme Court because Trump will kick up a tantrum. That is, if he loses, he might win. He might win. I think Biden's handling of the current unrest is not great. Biden has done a lot to virtue signal to Black Lives Matter, but he needs to really show that he's also going to be a president that supports law and order. Because one thing that Trump could do is present him as being soft on crime, and that might work. People until the George Floyd situation, people were looking at Trump's record on coronavirus, his disgraceful rhetoric around that, the declining economy. Um, but this current unrest around the Black Lives Matter thing could actually work in Trump's favor. He done one good thing. He called on police departments to scrap the chokehold move. I'm not a dogmatic Trump here, right? I will give Trump credit where credit is due, but I am sick and tired of Trump apologists making excuses for him every single time. It's like he's a big child who needs to be defended from his own nonsense. And that stuff about he didn't know that Finland was an independent country, he didn't know the UK had a nuclear arsenal. I could very well believe that because Trump has displayed his ignorance on world affairs. I think he's profoundly ignorant. Claim that the only book he's ever read is his own guide to business, I think is possibly true. Because this is not a man of the world. He is not cultured. Um, and that you might think that's a trivial ad hominem attack, but it does matter when it gets into issues of understanding other world leaders, when it gets into issues of understanding how the world works. Um, so, Trump supporters are going to say, oh, Bolton's a hater, Bolton's out to get him, Bolton's a liar. And they'll say the same thing about every Trump critic. Every time there is a resignation or a sacking, they'll say the same thing when similar claims are made. Anthony Scaramucci also has said similar things. At what point do you say that Trump's telling the truth and everyone else is lying? Is that plausible? Everyone who's critical of Trump is a liar or fake news. And Donald Trump, Saint Donald, who can do no wrong, oh, he just tells it like it is. pathetic, quite frankly. And I'll give Trump credit where credit's due, but I do struggle to find it with this president. Perhaps the best thing that Trump's done, and I will give him credit for this, is he has been a defender of Taiwan. He has been quite outspoken on that. I give him credit for that. And he has, at least outwardly, stood up to China. But if the claims about the Xinjiang concentration camps are true, that is absolutely appalling, given the substantial evidence that exists for the concentration camps. If Trump is defending possibly the greatest human rights abuse of our time, that's just morally repugnant from an American president. But, at the moment, these are Bolton's claims. I'm open minded enough to say they might not be true, but I'm looking at Trump's track record, and I think that it just looking at his track record, it just echoes with a lot of the things that Trump has said and done. This is a profoundly ignorant man. He is not a man of the world, and that makes me think that some of these claims could very well be true. I think the only thing that Trump's interested in is re-election, and he will do anything to do that. If that means underhand tactics with the Chinese in terms of getting them to go against Biden. I mean, put it this way, how can Trump, with a straight face, say that he has been so tough on China when he openly called for the Chinese to investigate Biden? And the Trump apologists can't deny that. This is from the horse's mouth. He said it. I'm sick and tired of people excusing things that are so plain to see. You could literally show a Trump supporter footage of him saying something, and they will say, "Oh no, it's been made up by the media." So it's this dogged sort of personality cult. They said there was a personality cult around Obama. There may have been in the early part of his tenure, but I have seen few people defend the president as much as Trump's base defend him. And that's not a good thing because it just shows a personality cult. Trump could literally, what was it he said? I could go into Times Square and shoot someone and they would still love me. I think it's probably true. And it's a damn disgrace. Worst president in my lifetime.